Welcome in to the DNVR Avalanche Podcast. We got Big E, we got AJ, we got Rudolph coming to you live. It's rank week, and we are doing the top what-ifs in Colorado Avalanche history. We have 11 what-ifs for you today that we're going to go through, talk about maybe alternate universe stuff. What could have been for the Colorado Avalanche? I feel like our list skews pretty negative. a lot of these what-ifs are like, what if the Avs fell apart, basically, but we'll get into those. We got some positive ones too. It's a little bit of everything in this list. So we'll see. Technically it's a top 10 list, and we have an 11th honorable mention because we have to put this in there, apparently, even if I don't believe it's going to happen. Number 11, honorable mention. What if the Avs trade for Sidney Crosby tomorrow?
Sick.
Throwing a party. Not
Yeah.
a party.
Look,
Party.
if that happens, man, I'm getting on an airplane and I'll fly to Colorado and we can have a party.
Cool. Emergency pod party confirmed when Sidney Crosby becomes an F.
I'll go get him. I'll rent a RV, and I'll get the red carpet out, and I'll drive him to Colorado. You know, all good.
That'd be
That's
fun
what we're-
drive.
Let me ask you guys this. If the Avs were to somehow get Sidney Crosby this year, do they immediately become contender number one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Had to make sure. I agree.
I just
All right.
not even knowing what they give up, I assume. Like, I'm just assuming, I guess, Brock Nelson would be part of it, but even if he's not, and you end up with a McKinnon, Crosby, Nelson, Drury center alignment,
Pretty good centers, yeah.
It's pretty good, man. It's pretty good.
The laugh is back.
All right.
His laugh is back.
Never left. Was just hiding. Yeah. Look, there's a reason this trade is still on the what if list. I'll put it to you that way. But maybe. Never say never, right? Anything is possible.
It would be great if he would change his mind and decide that he doesn't want to be a part of this rebuilding process and that he would like to come to Colorado, but we're not there. Instead, Pittsburgh is gonna transition perfectly from Crosby to McKenna, and
No, dude,
I'm gonna hate it.
I can't. Don't let this conspiracy theory live, NHL. Do not let McKenna go to Pittsburgh. You can go anywhere else. Fine. Just not Pittsburgh. I can't deal with another conspiracy theory.
Not Pittsburgh and not out west, just for my own sanity.
Sure. At least not the Central.
Well, I mean, Bedard, Celebrini, then McKenna. No, I don't want that, dude. I just don't want that.
All right.
All right. Let's get into our actual list of top 10s that have to do with the Avs franchise history, maybe not the Avs franchise future. What if the Avs didn't match the Ryan O'Reilly offer sheet from the Calgary Flames? This was a weird situation because it was a partial lockout year anyway, so this happened fairly late on in the off season. Technically it happened in season. The Avs were playing games without Ryan O'Reilly.
Against Calgary.
Yeah.
Yep.
Bit of a weird situation. O'Reilly ended up signing for $6 million, which at the time was a lot more than what it would have been today. Hadn't really proved that contract yet, but the Avs did ultimately match it. I don't know that there would have been a ton of difference either way. I mean, obviously the Avs would go on to trade O'Reilly, The only piece that ended up having a significant impact on the cup was Comfer out of that deal. So, yeah, I mean, I guess it would have mattered, but I don't know how much of a change it really would have put on the Avs as an organization.
Well, so Calgary ended up with 3 first-round picks that year, and the highest of those picks is the one that would have transferred to Colorado. They used that. It ended up as the 6th pick, and it was Sean Monahan. And keep in mind that's the 2013 draft. That's the McKinnon, Barkov, Duran, Jones, Lindholm, Monahan, Nurse, Ristolainen, Horvat, Nichushkin top 10. So, how much would O'Reilly have made the Flames better? It might have been 0, because remember there was that odd quirk where he would have had to pass through waivers in order to join the Flames, and Columbus was the top team in the waiver order at the time. So he might have just ended up a Columbus Blue Jacket. And, exactly, and the Avs would have gotten Calgary's first-round pick for free. So it might have been none. They might have just ended up with Nathan McKinnon and Sean Monahan out of that. And how different is it if the Avs end up with Sean Monahan and they're not chasing a guy like Nazem Kadri all those years later? Or one of these other, I mean, if they end up with a Darnell Nurse or Rasmus Ristolainen, what if they drafted Valeri Nichushkin?
Him? Would have been a very different world.
Yeah, and who knows how that relationship would have gone? Because remember, old man, was it bad with, I think it was Lindy Ruff.
Yeah, he hated him.
That relationship in Dallas really soured. So that's one where you look at it and JT Compher helped with the cup, and Nikita Zadorov was a good player for a number of years in Colorado before being moved straight up for Saad, and Saad was a part of the team that collapsed against Vegas. But like, where are they if they take one of these other guys? If they have Elias Lindholm or Sean Monahan, some of these other guys that they could have had here, it could have been a really different outcome. I mean, what if they'd had Josh Morrissey? What if Josh Morrissey and Cale Makar and Devon Taves are all in the same defense at the same time? Obviously they had Josh Morrissey. Maybe they don't trade for Devon Taves to begin with. So many different things could have happened depending on what they would have done with that pick, but they would have ended up with, if we just assume that Calgary doesn't end up with O'Reilly and it changes their roster not at all, they would have ended up with picks 1 and 6. And that's a pretty good building block for the future. They may not have ever bottomed out enough to go and get a Cale Makar in 2017, which is a horror.
Drifting into another of our what ifs that we'll get to in a little bit. Yeah.
So that's one of those what ifs that I think about, and I'm like, oh, but Eric, you lived that.
Yeah, it was part of management there. We were matching, but for us, it wouldn't have mattered. We were in a rebuild, right? We had stripped it down. We were the youngest team in the league, lowest payroll. So you go and get a Monahan, for example. If it ends up being that pick, then you're just a few years away backwards. Where Ryan, remember, I jumped in the league at 18, so then you were forward a little bit. I mean, whatever, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know what it would have done to the Avs, to our team, meaning like we were struggling, that's when we were in transition, so, but yeah, there was that quirk. You said it, that quirk. It was weird. It wasn't as cut dry. They would have fought that one, Calgary. I mean, that's a fireball. You make them. We were aware of everything, and if I remember, we talked with the league, and it wasn't as cut dry as like as it sounded. It scared people, especially Calgary. They were scared, because they would have looked so bad. You know what I mean? All of a sudden, you're doing that, then you lose the guy you offer sheet, and you lose your picks. Come on. So, we looked into all that. So, but anyway, at the end of the day, I love Ryan. But that was one of those that we were going to match anyway. We talked about that the other day at our pod. So it just didn't. The number wasn't high enough, and it was fun. You're right; they were right down the street. We could look at their hotel down the street from the window there at Ball Arena, Pepsi Center at the time. So they were like, "Are you kidding me? Like, come on, guys." But whatever. We almost started a fist fight on the press box, so it's fine.
Maybe the most petty side effect of this. Maybe O'Reilly never becomes a Blue and they never win a Stanley Cup.
Yeah, that's right.
True.
Mm-hmm.
Just throwing it out there. We can move on to number 9. What if the Avs keep Nazem Kadri after the 2022 Stanley Cup? We've talked about this one a lot on the show over the years, and in reality, just wasn't going to happen. Not a realistic what if, but let's say it could have been. Let's say the Avs found a way where Kadri's money made sense, and they decided to move on from Val Nichushkin instead. How much does this really change? Because yes, it obviously solves the Avs' seemingly never-ending hunt for a 2C, but it does not leave your lineup complete either. It is going to leave other holes in your lineup.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't have had Nichushkin, who's such a unique force in their lineup, and we don't live through the whatever you want to call the multiple exits to the players' assistance program in the postseason. We don't know what happens in the Kadri universe. Do they win another Stanley Cup? It doesn't seem like he was that important that he would have been the difference, especially that first year where that team just fell apart. Like you look at the roster that lost in Game 7, and you're like, Brad Hunt played forward for one shift in that game. Like,
Sure did.
like some wild stuff. After I was skeptical of the Dave Haxtell hiring, I learned that a lot of people do not remember that series well, and especially that Game 7 where the Avs were just beat up. I don't know how much Kadri affects the winning and losing of it. It certainly would have made them better, but the big difference here is that they don't chase that position. What did they move Bo and Byram for? Because I think they were going to move Byram probably no matter what, eventually in time, given his desire to be a top guy and that job just not being open in Colorado.
It wasn't going to happen here for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And so what did they move him for, and not trying to pigeonhole it into we need a 2C. We need a 2C. What could they have gotten? How different is it? Cal Ritchie is still an Avs prospect. Like it's so different. So many different things happen because the Avs aren't pouring assets into that position repeatedly. So that's the big trade, or that's the big change. They go and chase the wing instead, which is so much easier to do in a cost efficient manner. And I know everybody looks at Nichushkin the with him and without him in the lineup, and just solely attributes that to him, which is odd to me. But it would have been hard, but think of all the time that they've spent without Nichushkin in their lineup anyway, for a number of reasons. He gets hurt every year. He's had multiple. I mean, he had a 6-month suspension. He's multiple trips to the players' assistance program. 3 trips that cost them 2 playoff runs.
I think.
I mean, that alone, you remove that element of it, and who knows?
To play a little bit of devil's advocate, I think there are some rose-tinted glasses when it comes to Nazem Kadri in Colorado. And don't get me wrong, unbelievable in that cup run. Unbelievable player, had unbelievable moments in St. Louis. He returns from the injury, scores that game-winning goal in Game 4 that nobody knew went in the net. A bunch of unbelievable moments. Yeah. Not 1 year before, he's suspended for the entirety of the second round against Vegas, and probably cost. The Avs had plenty of other problems, but let's not pretend like Kadri didn't play a huge part in the Avs not being able to come Vegas in that second round.
Well, and not just that, the year before when they lost in the bubble to Dallas.
Yep.
It was his turnover at the blue line right after they scored the go-ahead goal in the third period that created the game-tying goal, literally like seconds after. And it was his blown coverage in front of the net on Kiviranta for the overtime game-winning goal. So even when he was in the lineup, he helped cost them Game 7 in 1 year, then got suspended for, what was it, 8 games the second year, and then he blew up in year 3, and that was great. But 2 of the 3 years he was in Colorado were rocky. And you look at his regular season production, 36 and 32 points. And he played 51 and 56 games, respectively. So, like, it wasn't like he was blowing the roof off the place. The 56-game season, people were done with Kadri. Like, people were like, he was so cold for such an extended stretch during that regular season that there was conversation of, like, Kadri might be washed as a player. Then he explodes for 87 points. Everything goes right in the walk year. And his first year in Calgary, he immediately goes right back to being a 50-point player. And then the last 2 years, he's back to being a low-end top-line center for them. I mean,
also playing pretty heavy minutes, but yeah.
Yeah, but not so many more minutes. Like, his last year in Colorado, he averaged 19 minutes. This last season, he averaged 19 minutes. So it's not even completely out of line that it's you can't just solely look at it and say he's getting all the good ice. He would have gotten a lot of good ice in Colorado too. Wow. And it is part of it. Like, you're completely right. You can't forget the first 2 years in Colorado. It was there were some train wrecking moments along the way.
Yep.
But if you fast forward and then they win, like you said, then I think looking back, everybody would have made the same decision. It was a flat cap. You had just come out of the beat of COVID. Hindsight 2020, right? You know, of course, you're looking at it, today, it would have been so much easier to keep him. Yeah, but I think 32 out of 32 make the Avs the same move the Avs did. They let go Kadri and they signed Nichushkin. So, I mean, at the end of the day, that is the big what if. You would have kept Kadri, you wouldn't have had Nichushkin, and who knows? And like you're bang on, you'd be looking for different kinds of wings, and maybe Bowen Byron would still be. Who knows, right? You know, what I mean, at the end of the day, it just the way it worked out. But Nas was great. You got to remember, he was great that year, but McKinnon was out for an extended period of time too, so he was getting the good PP ice, and I always tell you guys about the ice, so it does blow up your production a little bit. So, but they're definitely tied in together, Nichushkin and Kadri for sure.
Hang on, let me look something up real quick here. I'm curious what Kadri's stats are specifically against Dallas.
Oh my God.
All right. Well, pretty good. In 29 games against Dallas, Kadri has 13 goals, 15 assists, and 28 points.
That's got to be one of his higher point per games against a specific opponent.
I would assume so.
All right, I'm back in. Big mistake. The big thing that you do remember, it's not so much that they specifically chose a wing over a center, but Kadri was going into his age 32 season, and Val Nichushkin was going into his age 27 season.
Yeah.
Huge difference in what you're talking about in an aging curve. With Kadri, the 7-year deal, we all said, hey, the first couple of years of that contract could be pretty good. He could still be pretty good. But the last couple of them could be really bad.
Yep.
And
Nichushkin was also significantly cheaper. Like
with Nichushkin, we just didn't know what we didn't know.
Right, of course. Do want to continue the conversation. We're already late on our first break, though, so let's make sure we are taking our first break of the show. As, of course, we are brought to you by the folks over at Empire Today. Jump in with them if you need new flooring, whether it be carpet, hardwood, tile. They've got it covered. They are the flooring experts even, and they have everything you need. They only carry the best products, so you don't end up with that junk that some other stores might carry that isn't actually good flooring. So they've got you covered there, and they'll even come out and give you a free in-home estimate. Not just a free in-home estimate, because you can get $350 off today at empiretoday.com/DNVR, or mention the DNVR code. Jump in with them. If you want to do it online, they have online tools to see what it looks like. But when you come out and get that free in-home estimate, they'll bring flooring swatches. You can see what it looks like in your space with your furniture. So jump in today, get that $350 discount with the DNVR promo code at EmpireToday.com. Of course, restrictions do apply. Visit EmpireToday.com/DNVR. And of course, you can always call 1-800-588-2300-EMPIRE. Once you've got your flooring situation sorted out, make sure you're also taking care of your money the right way. When you're looking for banking that plays at your pace, whether you're tailgating, grabbing halftime snacks, or catching the game from the couch, First Bank is in your corner. With their secure, easy-to-use mobile banking app, you can check your balance, split the tab for stadium nachos, and stay on top of your money anytime, anywhere. It's like having a financial MVP in your pocket. And here is the play that pays. You can earn $300 when you open a new First Bank checking account. Use it to score tickets to your next sporting event or whatever keeps your game day going strong. First Bank makes managing your money feel like a win. No games, just solid tools to help you stay in control right from your phone. If you're ready to take your banking game to the next level, head to efirstbank.com/bonus. That's efirstbank.com/bonus. Of course, certain restrictions and requirements apply. Member FDIC. Second period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast. Doing what ifs today. I guess we'll move on to number 8. Number 8. What if the Avs win the 2000 Stanley Cup and Rob Blake trade never happens? Ray Bourque wins his cup and retires a year early. This question phrased another way. What if the Avs could beat the Dallas Stars when it matters?
Oh, my God.
I know they beat them in the first round a couple times in their career, but 2000 Conference Finals was another Game 7 loss to Dallas for the Colorado Avalanche.
Yeah. Eric, I'm happy to turn this one over to you.
I was in the Rangers at the time, and I flew in for Dallas with Bill Romanowski, former NFLer. So I think he had a plane, and he was like, hey, we're going to the game. For some reason, a buddy knew him that I knew, and we jumped on the plane and went. It was crazy. A couple hours before, just went right to the game, and then footy hits the post at the end there. Devastating for Ray, and then Dave Andrechuk at the time, if you guys remember. He thought that was it for him. He ends up winning in Tampa later, but his face was just like, I remember seeing, because I knew Dave. I'd play with him, and when I saw him after the game there, you could tell he was just like crushed. But you're right. They win that one. They're not doing the Rob Blake trade. They're not doing that the next year. They felt after that series, and I remember in the summer, that's what they were talking about, is again, I tell you guys all the time, the big Montreal influence on my dad, Montreal Canadiens influence, and they were going with the big three, and they knew that they had footy, they had Ray. Ray said he was coming back, and, they're like, we need another one, a pillar, you know what I mean? Like, and no offense to Clemmer or Devo or Skula, to get there, or Aaron Miller, for Millsy, there were just no, when Rob Blake became the target, then they figured out that this is their big three, Montreal Canadiens with Guy Lapointe, Robinson, and Serge Savard, right, that won those cups. And that was the purpose behind it, and you're right. So if they don't win, if they win that 2000 Cup, well, Ray probably retires on the spot there. And, so maybe they do make the Blake trade. But, I don't know. Ray would have been gone. But so they would have really had to make a trade for a D, right? But anyway, I think they're tied in together. You're right. And then it was the Dallas Stars. You're right. They were nemesis back then to us. Absolutely. And they still are. But they were. And they had the Montreal Canadiens influence as well, right? They had, McPhee and Scruglin, Mike Keane, Guy Carbonneau, Ludwig, from DLLS there. Craig was awesome. There's more. I mean, there's a couple. I'm trying to remember who else was there. Montreal Canadian was. But anyway, it was crazy, the influence that they had. And those were 6 series. Those were awesome series. And more power to Dallas that year. They, 99, 2000, they were unbelievable in the playoffs. Those couple years there. So, yeah.
For what it's worth, the Avs still would have had to get through New Jersey. New Jersey did beat Dallas that year to win the cup. So it's not like they were a walkover into the Cup
No,
Finals
yeah,
had they
you're
beat
right.
Dallas in
Maybe.
that. Honestly, this what if for me might actually be more of a. Would this have been the best chance for the Avs to be repeat winners? Because they were still going to be really good. Like you said, that Rob Blake trade may well still happen if they win that Cup.
Yeah.
Sakic, of course, had the MVP year in 2001, so
they would have no Ray Bourque, so the urgency to go get Rob Blake might have even been higher.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, you're right.
So I do wonder if that one might low key be an opportunity for the Avs to make even greater legacy. But
yeah,
you know, we know how the 2000s went after that 01 Cup, and it is disappointing and is on this list. So we'll get to that in a little bit too. All right. What are we on? 7? Yeah, number 7. What if the Avs fired Jared Bednar after the 2016-17 48-point season? I don't even know where to start with this one because the spiraling consequences of that are so unknowable that anything could happen. The Avs could. Who do the Avs even hire in 2017 to be the new head coach at that point? I have no idea. What does that look like? As we know in our world, the Avs do sneak back into the playoffs that year. Jared Bednar is now the winningest coach in Avs history. It genuinely, things could play out exactly the same with a different head coach, or they could have another horrible year with a new head coach, and I would not be super surprised by either.
I'll jump in right away on this one. For me, it would have shown that the Avalanche weren't good people, so to speak, because I got to be honest with you. The way Jared came in, and this is not a jab at Patrick, but you know what I mean? We all know the circumstances that Bednar came in, and it's totally wrong. And, you know, he comes in and it's August, whatever it is, and you're set up for failure. You've never been a coach in the league. You've never set foot in the league. You've never been an assistant coach. And just the way it starts that way, it would have been wrong on the Avs to do that. I think they showed their true colors, the front office, meaning, you know, the ownership, Joe, you know, Chris at the time. So again, it's been the same ownership, the same management. And, you know, they're okay. Well, let's get a mulligan here. Let's get a breakfast ball, whatever you want to call it. Let's do this all over again. But it would have showed their true colors, that they're you know, it would have showed that they don't have the patience that they have right now. Which it started with that they're a very patient front office when it comes down to doing the right things. They're impatient when it comes down to, if we saw the goaltending this year, all that kind of stuff. Okay, it's enough now. Let's get some stuff going. So they know how to pull the trigger. But it just, for me, it would have showed their true colors in the sense that, and that's not their true colors, you know, which is bad people. The Avs are good people, and I think they showed right there by sticking by.
If anybody is curious, since we're talking about a lot of, we're in the land of what ifs, the Avs have not hired very many established NHL coaches in their history. I think the only two are Quenneville and Tony Granato, who was
The
only
second
a
time.
retread. Yeah, it was only a retread because of them. But the hirings, the coach hirings that summer in the summer of 2017, when Bednar theoretically would have been fired, the Rangers fired Alain Vigneault and hired John Stevens. The Kings fired Daryl Sutter, and the Canucks brought in Travis Green, and the Stars hired Ken Hitchcock. Notably, fun part of this little what if, he had been fired during that season. Pete DeBoer was a free agent head coach at the time.
Oh boy.
Just saying. All those nightmares could be avoided. Then the Avs may not have ever won a cup.
Yeah, exactly.
But it goes deeper into. I mean, we are so accustomed to Bednar at the time now, but at the time we didn't really have a good feel for what he wanted his guys to be. Nathan MacKinnon had never broken out up until that point. It was under Bednar's tutelage that he really started to come into his own. Would that have happened with or without Bednar? We'll never know.
Yeah,
there's a possibility that the answer is no. Would Cale Makar have been given the leash and the confidence that Bednar showed in him to drop him into a postseason series and play him right away and immediately turn things over to him? We look at Cale Makar and we say, well, he's the best defenseman in the NHL, so it's easy to say, yeah, any coach would have done that. I don't know if that's true.
Yeah.
So
Fair.
when you look at where they are now, where some of these guys have developed, Bednar has kind of ushered in this era. He's been the steward of this era of Avalanche hockey, and taking him out of it is not a meaningless change. It's not like any coach could have just rolled on in and won a Stanley Cup with all these star players. They would have been fine. If that's the case, then Chris Knobloch would have a Stanley Cup ring, maybe two. You know,
Yep.
like it's not easy to do. So this is one with so many far-reaching unknown webs, as you mentioned, and I think the character part that Eric mentioned is important, but also just looking at it from what did happen that summer, who actually did get hired. No idea. It could have been. I mean, maybe Pete DeBoer gets that job, and we live in a really weird alternate universe.
I do think it's almost a reverse what if to me, because at the time we were talking about that was the worst season in modern NHL hockey, the worst one. And in the last, what is it, not quite a decade, 9 years since that, 8 years since that season, we've seen 2 seasons worse. Detroit was on pace for a worse season in the COVID shortened year. And then San Jose the other year had worse seasons than that. And what at the time felt like an unmitigated disaster has turned into, this is just a thing that happens in modern hockey sometimes. We saw San Jose move on from David Quinn, and what did that do for them? Nothing.
Yeah.
So the Avs stuck with their guy, and it worked out.
Yeah.
Well, the only thing that helped is they got punched by losing the lottery, and then they get the 4th pick, and then they get Cale. So there you go.
We'll get to that. Yeah.
No, it all ties in, right? You know.
Yep.
Yeah.
Next one, number 6. What if Chris Stewart doesn't get traded for Eric Johnson? Kevin Shattenkirk also in that deal, to be fair, but Chris Stewart was the catalyst for that move happening in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We won't.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just so specifically, there were some off-ice issues with Chris Stewart that kind of served as the inspiration, as the catalyst for this move. And then, Chris Stewart was like a young up-and-coming power forward coming off of a great 20-goal
28
season.
goal season, yeah.
And Kevin Shattenkirk was one of the top defensive prospects in hockey, very valuable, and they moved both of those guys for Eric Johnson, who had been a recent number 1 overall pick. So, like, that's a blockbuster. Imagine that kind of deal. For like an Owen Power.
The closest in recent history is like the Kachuk trade, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, even then, it's like first overalls who are like productive, solid players just don't get moved that often, and especially defenders, especially right shot defenders. Like Eric Johnson was just such a unicorn in his own right, and we've all come to be very comfortable with EJ's upside and who he was and how much we all love him, and he's such a great guy and he's such a great embodiment of wearing the A, but like he was kind of like a disappointment at St. Louis, and I think that pressure weighed on him quite a bit, and Colorado freed him for that, freed him from that. It seems like it's easy to say now that St. Louis would have moved on from Eric Johnson someday, and he would have gone somewhere, and something else would have happened. But with no EJ, I mean, you don't ever get some of the great moments that we got out of EJ when they won the Stanley Cup. Like, he's not one of the veteran guys on that blue line, just rock solid in that playoff run. In kind of the last gasp of him being like a real true like day-to-day impact player in the NHL. That's such a strange one because like it was a non-hockey thing that was like, hey, this has to happen. We need to figure out what's going on. We need to find a solution here. And they end up with Erik Johnson, who becomes an all-time Av.
Yeah, I mean, I do believe Chris said and I told him that too, capabilities of become the future captain of this franchise, and sometimes things do happen. And for some reason, again, we were young. We were on a rebuild, and a lot of people were mad about the trade. And looking back, I was at the forefront of that trade, so I can speak freely on this. But at the end of the day, you make a trade because you have to make a trade, and you do what you can do with the best that you are able to do. And it disrupted a little bit up front. Paul was having some nice chemistry with, Paul Stastny was having nice chemistry with Chris Stewart. They were the young up-and-comers and playing well and a power forward. And at the end of the day, we made the trade. And the reason is it's hard to find those big right-shot defensemen. AJ was a lost puppy a little bit, being the first overall pick. We all know the way it started with that freak injury and playing golf and, you know what I mean, and missed the season. And yeah. AJ had the pressure of being one, and I think Taze was 3, and he had cups now. And, there's always been the reminder of that. I think EJ came here, and that's why I have a special relationship with EJ, too. And when I say special, it's a lot of respect. I was like, hey, be yourself. We don't care. We don't care that you were taken 1, 2, 3, 50th, second round, 4th round. We want you to be you. And I think he's always respected that, and I think he was awesome. He bought into the culture of what being an Avalanche is, and obviously carried it through all the way to this year, right? Still he's back. So I think that you bring in the right shot. I do believe Shaddy was a casualty of the didn't want to get rid of Shaddy. Remember, he had a bright future. He was a first rounder. You got him. Colby Cohen was a second rounder. They were both at BU, remember, together, and the right shot, and all that kind of stuff. And I think that, EJ comes in, one trade, I tell you guys all the time, all of a sudden, the dynamic's different. The emergence of Tyson Barrie, a third-round pick that it was obviously, we were right. Look, he had a great year. I mean, a great career. It made Shattenkirk, it made, expendable. And that trade, obviously, we got good leadership in Jay McClement. And then you're getting I think the 11th overall pick. We just didn't, no offense on the pick. I'm saying it just didn't pan out. If that pick pans out, it's an unbelievable trade. You know what I mean? The guy becomes Denver's most tenured athlete, EJ. He's got a cup. So, yeah, for me, it was one of those things that you take a lot of heat at the moment. It's all right. We took the heat. At the end of the day, the trade still lives on. So, it's all good. They must have been right. We must have done a good job, and we'll take the flowers for it because EJ was a heck of an Avalanche.
That 11th overall pick was conditional too. It was if the pick is outside of the top 10,
right?
And then St. Louis finished 11th.
Like
it was best case scenario for the Avs, and as you mentioned, the pick doesn't. Yep, didn't work out.
Yeah, it didn't work out,
And it's tough because if you look at the top 10 in 2011, every single one of the guys 1 through 10 are currently having really good NHL careers. And 3 picks in a row, 11, 12, and 13, not great. 14, Jamie Alexiak. 15, JT Miller. 16, Yoel Armia. You almost look back on it and we're like, I wish St. Louis did a little bit better. I wish they'd won a couple more games at the end. But yeah, I mean, it was set up to be an even better deal for them. It just didn't quite work out with Stevens. It's a bummer. Really nice kid.
Spoilers, I'm working on a video that is this trade tree. And in a weird way, it's very beautiful in that the Avs side is that's it. That is the end of the trade tree. They got Eric Johnson and some guys that didn't work out, and they kept Eric Johnson forever. And that's it. That's their side of it. I will say they did trade Chris Stewart at the exact right time. He finished out that year pretty well with St. Louis, and then he had one more solid year in the lockout season. And then he never hit 30 points again in his career. So
plummeted.
Yep. So a well-timed trade from the Avs. If the Avs don't make that deal, who knows? EJ was their number one defenseman for years and years and years through the middle of the 2010s. So they probably would have to gone out and got someone else. Who knows? Maybe they pick Seth Jones in that universe. I don't know. We do need to take another break. We're actually way behind because I'm slacking today, but that's okay. Don't be behind when you get yourself on the roads with Toyota. Toyota, of course, has a vehicle for everyone, whether it's trucks. It's been in their DNA forever. If you need to haul stuff, they've got SUVs, they've got sedans, whatever it might be, they've got you covered. Whether you're conquering off-road trails or hauling the weight of the world, there's a Toyota truck that's just right for you, like the all-new Tacoma and the return of the iconic Land Cruiser. Go get yourself one of their 17 different models with all-wheel or four-wheel drive, like the Epic 4Runner, and check out their 16 different hybrid vehicles to choose from, even trucks like the Tundra iForce Max. You can jump in with them at any time at your local Front Range Toyota stores, including AutoNation Toyota, Arapahoe and Centennial, Corwin Toyota and Boulder, Groove Toyota in Littleton, Mountain States Toyota in Denver, Stevenson Toyota East in Aurora, and Stevenson Toyota West in Lakewood. Go check out the official vehicle of DNVR and the official vehicle of the Colorado Avalanche. Toyota, let's go places. Once you got yourself into a Toyota, you got to also make sure you get into yourself where you stink, all right? Jump in with Mando. It's a men's deodorant brand that's hyper-focused on keeping every aspect of a man's body smelling fresh and clean. And yes, they do mean every aspect. Belly buttons, balls, butt cracks, grundles, you name it. Mando wants to get in there and get you smelling right. You can jump in with a bunch of scents, including bourbon leather, cloverwoods, Mount Fuji, and Pro Sport. And the coolest part is Mando's starter pack is the way to go for new customers. Comes with a solid stick deodorant, a cream deodorant, and 2 free products of your choice, like mini body wash or deodorant wipes. All of that comes with free shipping. And then you can get 20% off site-wide with our exclusive DNVR code. So head over to shopmando.com, use that DNVR code. Again, shopmando.com, 20% off site-wide and free shipping with the DNVR code. Make sure you use the code. Let them know we sent you over there. Support us, support them. Everybody wins. Smell fresher, stay drier, and boost your confidence from head to toe with Mando. Third period of the DNVR Avalanche What If show. We keep it rolling here beyond Chris Stewart. The next on our list of what ifs, and this is a big one. What if there were different outcomes to the 2013, 2017, and 2019 NHL drafts? So, to be clear, what we're talking about here. Yes. What if the Avs lose the lotto for Nathan MacKinnon? What if the Avs lose the lotto? Well, technically win the lotto and don't end up with Cale Makar. There's actually a lot of spiraling what ifs you could go from there. And then what if the way things work out with Ottawa and the Matt Duchene trade, that it doesn't end up being Bowen Byram, but instead pick your poison. Do you want the Tkachuk brother? Do they win it and they end up with Jack Hughes? A lot of ways that 2019 could have been different.
Yeah, I think it was 2013. It was simply just swapping Colorado and Florida, 1 and 2. Florida ends up at 1. Maybe nothing changes. Like maybe they take Barkov at 1, and the Avs end up with McKinnon at 2, and we're in the exact same space. But if those picks swap and the Avs end up with Barkov, which I think it's pretty well known at this point that originally Barkov was the guy that everybody in the organization was crazy about and wanted, and then Patty Wall came in and said, no, we're taking Nathan MacKinnon. He's the same kind of crazy I am, and I want that. And pretty vindicating, honestly. That said, Barkov has won 2 Stanley Cups in a row, and it feels like Florida is also pretty comfortable here.
Yeah, both sides won on that one, I think.
Yeah, I think this is one of those ones where you're kind of like, I mean, you might have gotten there in a different way. The Avs, keep in mind at the time, the Avs would have, if they would have taken Barkov, they would have had Paul Stastny, Matt Duchene, Ryan O'Reilly, and Sasha Barkov all on one team.
Yep.
Which, you replace
Pretty
Barkov
wild.
with McKinnon. That all of that is still true. That center depth was outrageous, which is one reason they were fine when Paul Stastny walked, and then Ryan O'Reilly left, and then
Yeah, it's easier said than done afterwards too. And a lot of people, there was a lot of noise for Seth Jones that year, if you remember, being a local boy. A little bit like Higgins this past draft, right? You got to take him out one. He's from Colorado. And again, Seth is a great NHL defenseman, just won a cup. That's not what I'm saying, but would have been a mistake, obviously. But if people think that it was, if people think that it's not true about Barkov and everything, a lot of teams had Barkov at one that year, including the legend, the Avalanche. That probably is true that they had Barkov at one. And again, you can't go wrong. The two different players. They're obviously two players that have one more dynamic, the other one's more polished, right? They're both Stanley Cup winners. They're both, whatever. But number one centers. But it's funny, because there's a lot of what ifs there. You're right. And what if Patty doesn't step? Then you don't have the Nathan McKinnon that you know what I mean? And then it's the same thing with the 17 draft. Like, what if they win the lottery? Oh, yeah, they were taking – I'd like to really know. Were you taking Cale Makar at 1 from the AJHL? Like, I don't know. I know that Philly – there's been some speculations. They were saying they were taking him at 1. There's there's a lot of – like a lot of people in the Avs are saying they had him. Of course, and again, right here, he's the best player. I'm debating that. But it's easier said than done afterwards, and even people think that Heiskanen was, they missed out. Like Heiskanen was, if you would add people's lists, he was probably ahead of Cale on most lists in the 32.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Whatever it was at that time, 100%. So you got to remember, it's always on projection. It's the environment they're put in. Whatever it is, Cale, it just worked out perfectly. You know what I mean? Like in this environment, and you're right. Then all of a sudden, it just becomes a little crazy with the 19 draft. Where does it go and all that kind of stuff, right? So yeah, there's a lot of what ifs there, and there'd be a lot of good players with different jerseys and different career paths so far. If the what if was true,
The 17 draft is interesting too because Nolan Patrick had a lot of ties to the Avalanche, and he was like the top guy that year. He got hurt.
Thing he can tie, but
Yeah,
that's an amazing callback. He only played 33 games in his draft season after being a dominant WHL player in his D-1. His actual draft year, the injury issues, there wasn't really like a clear cut. Like the top two guys going into that year were Nolan Patrick and Timothy Liljegren. And Hischier blew up, Heiskanen blew up, Makar blew up. Those guys all rocketed up the boards as the season went on. The Avs with Patrick in particular had ties there, and we all know that relationships run the world. And that is one where you wonder if they'd gotten the first pick, not 2, not 3, if they had their pick of it, because I've talked to people who were in the Avalanche organization at the time, and you get different stories. Some of them swear by Cale Makar was our guy, and some of them have said Nolan Patrick was their guy. And that's one that you wonder what would have actually transpired. I don't like to think of a world where Cale Makar isn't an Av, but you definitely wonder, hey, did the draft lottery and then 3 other teams contributed to this great fortune of theirs? Honestly, after the season the Avs had, getting the 4th pick, the universe owed them one. So karmically,
True.
it's all balanced.
I feel pretty comfortable saying the Avs probably don't win a cup in 2022 without Cale Makar, regardless of whether it's Patrick or Heiskanen or whatever. But when a guy wins a Conn Smythe, like only bad news if you don't end up with that guy.
Yeah.
The other one is 2019 with Byram.
And hold on. You're forgetting 1.2. If didn't take the car, I would be shirtless on this pod right now, and that wouldn't be good. So, a lot of stuff throwing up.
It's a fair point.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sometimes we take our shirts off. It's okay. The last bit of this, and we have to speed up a little bit here, but 2019, the main focus of this, ignoring the what if Ottawa gave him the pick the year earlier.
Yeah.
You could have had Jack Hughes. Another way to solve the Avs 2C position permanently is if they win that draft lotto with that pick, they could have had Jack Hughes as their 2C or however you want to shake that out. Now, knowing what we know today, Byram was a crucial part of that cup run. He was fantastic for them on the defensive side. So who knows how it ends up. If they end up with Jack Hughes, do they move Tyson Barrie for a different defenseman instead of Nazem Kadri? I mean, who knows? But
yeah,
lots of spirals from that.
The other part of that is that they ended up behind Chicago, who everybody thought was taking Byram, and it sure sounded like a lot of people inside their organization wanted to take Byram, and they kind of went rogue at the last minute there and ended up with Kirby Dach, who was a guy the Avalanche very much liked. And from conversations that I've had at the time, the guys that the Avalanche were really, really high on were Kirby Dach, Matt Boldy, and Spencer Knight. And if Bowen Byram gets taken, it would be very interesting to go back in time and see what the Avs do. And frankly, do they win the 22 Cup without Bowen Byram? Because he was fantastic in that playoff run. It's the best he's ever played in his NHL career was during that Cup run. Yep. And has never been able to get to that level consistently since. But, and if the Avs, let's say that Bowen Byram goes 3 and the Avs take a forward at 4, do they then still take Alex Newhook at 16 or do they take Thomas Harley? And if the Avs end up with Thomas Harley, where's Dallas today? Thomas Harley's on the Avalanche blue line, a better NHL player than Bowen Byram.
I know he wasn't on their list, but there's a world where they take Heiskanen in 2017 and Harley in 2019. Dallas picks like Elias Pettersson at 4 or something, or at 3, and
such a strange.
Yeah,
so many different things happen. Yeah.
All right, number 4. What if Paul Kariya and Teemu Selanne weren't hurt in their lone Avs super team season? We're talking about the Avs era, Avs 1.0 era, as a legitimate dynasty at that point, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, I think, frankly, this one's pretty straightforward. They win the Stanley Cup.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know that there's much else to say.
I mean, I'll add to it. I mean, again, people think it was all like done in advance. And, you're talking about what's the word? Like, what's the word?
Tampering?
Tampering, Like, no, honestly, I was there. Just started working in the front office and it was free agency and then the phone rang and a great relationship between their agent and my dad, which was the same agent as Peter and Joe, you know what I mean? So very, very great relationship. And it was a what if phone call. It was, what if the two of them come? And then Pierre was saying, well, I don't have the money. People are thinking, well, there was no salary cap back then. No, guys, there was an internal salary cap. There was, like, internally. And, any good running business would have. And it was more like, well, I can't sign them both. Yeah, but what if technically, they split the whatever it is, And it was crazy, and it ended up being an unbelievable day. I remember I was like, oh my god, my wife Jill was pregnant. We ended up in the office. I don't want to say till like 2, 3 in the morning. It was crazy. Charlotte, I want to say that was her birthday as well, and it was just like we were stuck in the office, and it was amazing. And then the guys flew in the next day or whatever it was, but it was crazy because it was like, wow, that was such a big whiff. Woo! But who's going to be our goalie, right? I remember Patty had just retired, and that's when David Abashir was taking over, and there was there was a big what if in that, you know what I mean? And I love Abby, but it was, tough shoes to follow to play after Patrick. But yeah, if those two guys, Paul and Teemu, were gentlemen, they were awesome, they were pros, they were professional, they were such fun guys. That group had a great time on the plane. I can tell you that they all had their at the hotel, like on the hotel list, everybody had their poker names. Joe, Peter, Paul, Teemu. Everybody had their I don't remember who. I think Joe was Doyle Brunson, I think, or Kariya was like, So everybody, it was such a big poker team, and Talk was there too, and so there was a lot of card players. It was a fun group, and yeah, bad wrist and a bad knee, and it just didn't work out. But at the end of the day, yeah, I agree with you. I think it's a Stanley Cup if those two are not hurt.
I mean, that was their top 6 forwards with those guys should have been Sakic, Tanguay, Hayduk, Forsberg, Kariya, Selanne.
Friggin' all-star team.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Oh, by the way, Rob Blake is also on your defense.
Yeah, that first game was unbelievable against Chicago. 5-0 game, and it was like, oh my God, they're going to steamroll the whole league. You know what I mean? It was crazy. It was fun. It was really fun.
It didn't work out that way, but
no.
Yeah. All right, that one's straightforward. We can move on to number 3. What if Gabe Landeskog doesn't hurt his knee?
This one is tied so closely with the Kadri re-signing what if that, I mean, if Landy, I don't think Landy's presence changes the 2023 postseason that much. Again, because that Avalanche team was so beat up that I don't think they would have gotten past the second round.
Yeah, but I don't think they win it. But if Landy was in the lineup, I'd bet they get through Seattle.
I agree with you. I just don't think they go beyond that.
That's fair.
Do they beat Dallas in the bubble? Do they? Because if they beat Dallas in the bubble, I mean, Michael Hutchinson was in net. They were ready to roll. They could have gone so deep. But the last 2 seasons are the ones that I wonder about.
Yeah.
Like this last postseason, he plays in, and that's great. But let's be real, the guy's coming back from missing 3 years worth of games.
Yep.
He misses the first 2 games of the series. What if he plays in those games?
Yeah.
Like they fell 1 goal short in that series. Could they have gotten that goal with Landy in game 2? Like, I don't know if that answer is yes or we don't know, right? But that's how close they were, and we know. I think the 3 of us believe that if they had gotten through Dallas, they were primed to. I fully believe they would have gotten through Winnipeg,
yeah.
And I think that Colorado Edmonton would have been a true clash of the Titans. It would have been awesome. It would have been an awesome series. I don't know who would have won, but it was there. And honestly, you put Landy on even last year's team. I guess 2 seasons ago, 2 postseasons ago now.
Yeah.
They get through Dallas in that one in round 2. They're in the conference final against Edmonton.
Look, you can't change.
I really like their chances.
You can't change what happened with Nichushkin, but
Yeah.
Look, we all are pretty well aware of Landeskog being a very stabilizing emotional force for this hockey team.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't get their head kicked in when that happens. If Landy is there out there with them, maybe there is a little bit of they win that game 5 and Landy can get them up for game 6 to just keep the forces going or whatever it is. I know there are other issues there, but it does feel like Landy's presence could have been a linchpin to get them over a hump and say, all right, we're fine as is. We keep going. Not just that, but when you're talking about stylistic play, if you lose a Val Nichushkin, Gabe Landeskog does a lot of the same things Val Nichushkin does mechanically on the ice.
Yeah, I do.
Absolutely.
I'll keep it very simple. For me, it's those 3 playoff seasons. The what if is, who knows? No one has that it factor like he does to that team. And I think that not being there, you can't replace it. Who knows what would have happened in those 3 seasons?
Yeah.
Yep.
And again, I say 3 because I include the one from last year, which was, again, it was such an emotional roller coaster just coming in for a few, you know what I mean? So who knows? Yep. So
yeah.
Heading into overtime for our top 2 picks here. So make sure you join us online at thednvr.com where the conversation continues. By the way, if we have any what ifs you think we missed, jump them down in the comments and we will maybe pick a few of them that we like and talk about them tomorrow too. So
yeah,
getting into our top 2, number 2, what if the Avs don't match Joe Sakic's offer sheet with the Rangers? Do the Avs exist if they don't match this offer sheet?
I tried to write about this yesterday, and I was like, if they didn't have the money for it, they were financially struggling as it was. Would they have even stayed in Colorado? Would they have been able to handle it? Like, would that have just been it? And then Colorado hockey just doesn't ever happen again because that was their second team?
Maybe.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, again, I was part of it. AJ knows the whole, Rudo knows the story. I was with Joe that morning, actually, at the gym when he signed the offer sheet. Old man was not happy at all. That was funny, on a side note. But, with that said, it was never going to happen that they weren't going to match. You know what I mean? But it took a miracle, but they were going to find a miracle. They were going to, invent a miracle. You know what I mean? And Joe was too big of a piece. They had made the decision to stick with him a couple years before, right? My dad and him, and let go Sundin, let go Nolan, let go pieces like that because we're going to keep Joe. And that's what he wanted to do. And, I'm going to win with Joe. You know what I mean? And that was important. But what I did instead is I took his spot. I became a New York Ranger so he could go through me and ask me all the questions, what it was like to play for the Rangers. And I could, just answer it for him. And then the Avs fans don't have to go through all that painful thing of seeing Joe Sakic in a Rangers jersey. So I just took his spot.
It's
type of guy I am. That's it.
Look, I know a lot of these what ifs could have pretty big ramifications on the Colorado Avalanche. I don't know that there is anyone that would have more impact than Joe Sakic. Joe Sakic is the Avs all-time leader in, until game 1 of next season, pretty much every single category. Nathan MacKinnon did just tie him for total points in an Avs jersey. If you go franchise, Joe Sakic's got 1,600 points if you include his time in Quebec. So that's ridiculous. Ask anyone over the age of 22 who the Avs all-time captain is. It's Joe Sakic. Multiple, massive trophy wins, obviously wins the 2 Stanley Cups. You don't get what is arguably the greatest moment in the history of the Stanley Cup with him sweeping it over to Raymond Bourque. It genuinely, a lot of these are like, wow, look at all these crazy things that could have happened in this what if. With Joe Sakic, it's incalculable how different not just the Avs are, but the entire NHL.
You also, Joe Sakic never becomes a front office executive in Colorado. He never becomes the GM. Like, do we even have this era of Avalanche hockey? Obviously, I'm just assuming they stay in Denver, but he never becomes GM? Are they in the Calgary zone?
Maybe.
Are they any good? Do they botch all their top picks that they would have had? Do they botch the Duchesne deal? Do they, he was such a good general manager. We say it all the time. The titles changed. The structure has largely remained the same between Sakic and Chris McFarland. But, Sakic spearheaded one of the most efficient and ruthless, top quality front offices for like 6, 7 years. And do they do that? Does any of that happen? How different is it if somebody else is the general manager? They just hire just whoever, right? They get a retread GM, and who knows? It could be the Francois Giguère, Greg Sherman era all over again, where you're just like, what is happening here? Like it's not even
Valid
just
point.
the playing career, it's the executive career as well, because you would have lost that. Joe Sakic's not going to be the GM of the Avalanche if he was a New York Ranger.
True.
No.
It's who even becomes the face? I guess it'd be Forsberg is the face of the franchise at that point, or Patty Waugh, but that's getting into our number one.
Forsberg probably never leaves in free agency because they would have had the money to keep him post salary cap implementation.
His career, his body still breaks down though, so
right, it doesn't make him healthier.
Yeah, right.
No, you wouldn't have that constant. You know what I mean? Like that constants, whatever you want to call that.
Yep.
Yeah.
That President Joe is the Avalanche. Joe is what you think of when you look at the logo. There's no doubt it's the first name you think of. 100%.
And then number one, what if the Avs never traded for Patrick Waugh? I mean, look, they probably don't win that first Stanley Cup, and who knows what happens from there.
Yeah, I mean, what do you do in net? Do you think that Stéphane Fiset or Jocelyn Thibault were going to backstop the Avalanche past the record-setting Detroit team in the Western Conference Finals in 1996? They were fine goalies. I'm not out here trying to bag on them. Of course, they were fine goalies. They just weren't Patrick Waugh. And Patrick Waugh was such a culture shift guy too. It wasn't just that he's the greatest goalie, but he brings in such a different mentality. Because you remember the team that got to Denver was the last Quebec team.
They were good.
They were good, and they had a huge flame out in the postseason.
Yeah, blew the first
They
round
didn't
after
know how
winning
to
their
win
division.
yet.
Yeah,
they didn't know what they were doing yet. They hadn't grown yet.
And that's why, for me, the what if, it's like the Avs would have never won. And it's no offense to Peter, Joe, you're right. They didn't know how to win. They needed those. They took 18 months to figure, to bring guys in, the Claudes, the Keeners, obviously in the same trade there. And you always need a general, right? Patty was the general. You know what I mean? Knew how to win, knew the steps to take. It didn't matter if he was stepping on his grandma's throat or if he was hurting his brother's feelings. You know what I mean? And that's not easy to do. And that is not easy to do. And that's not a jab at Joe. That's not his forte. It wasn't. You needed that dude to come in and do what needed to be done. And I think Patty was the guy. And that's why what if they never win if that trade doesn't happen. And that's the most important trade for me, in the history of the Avalanche and the history of, the last 30, 40 years of hockey for sure.
I struggle with the premise of this one just because of what you guys just said. Like, this was not – Patrick Waugh was the biggest move, but it was not the first move to go this direction for the Avs, right? They came here. They said, we want to win. We need winners. They go out and get Claude Lemieux in the offseason. They get rid of some of the guys they feel like they can't win with, the Ozo trade. This was always the path that they were on when Patrick Waugh became available. But the only way I can see this what if happening is what if Montreal pulls him earlier and he doesn't lose his mind, basically. As soon as he was on the market, the Avs were doing it.
AJ, he would have found a way to get himself out of there. He's just and then you always talk about trade trees and everything. You just said your trade tree with EJ or Matt Duchene. Then I'm going to give you a personal one on this note. If Patrick Waugh doesn't get traded, maybe Fizzler never gets traded. Maybe I don't get traded. Maybe I never become an Avalanche. Maybe I never meet my wife and my 3 kids aren't born. That's a big what if for me right there on that trade.
the personal what ifs. I do think.
Then you're not on this pod.
Yeah. Does DNVR even exist?
Yeah. That's how big I am.
The other side of this, though, is I think this is another what if. Do the Avs even exist? Because I know, like, when they came to Colorado was big on it. We were all hyped to have a hockey team again. But if they don't win that cup that first year, a couple of years later, the Broncos win the first championship in Colorado history, at least of major sports. And the Avs don't really have that bump, I think, that made them so popular in Colorado. And look, the reality is the 90s hockey fandom wasn't that big in the 90s, not like it is today. So I do think there are some questions there.
This isn't so much about WA, but the epic run that your dad had in 95-96 to build that team.
Yeah.
They moved to Denver and he added Sandis Ozolinsh, Claude Lemieux, Patrick Waugh, and Mike Keane. Those four guys he added in season.
Yeah.
I mean, what a run.
It was a good run. Timing is everything, right? You know, the timing was right. And those two made each other good. They made each other better. Patrick and my father, you know, special relationship. Relationship you don't see a lot in your lifetime, you know what I mean? So, again, made each other what they are. You know, it's weird. I don't know how to explain it. But, again, my dad was so good. I mean, special relationship with Joe, right? Special relationship with Peter. But all unique relationships, you know. But the Patrick one is the more complex one because Patrick was, you know, complex and right. You know what I mean? I love when I say that. I love him. I'm not. That is not. But you have to know how to handle him, and you know, and Patrick wants that. People think he doesn't want that. You know what I mean? Patrick wants that. You know what I mean? But it just has to be the right guy. You know what I mean? And they just happen to be right for each other. You know what I mean? And that was special. Something you don't see every year. You know, it's every day. That's for sure.
Spiraling what if? Similar with Joe Sakic. If Waugh doesn't come here, he's never the head coach. Do the Avs end up with Sasha Barkov instead of Nathan McKinnon? Like,
yeah, it's all tied in.
There's so many elements to that one.
Yeah. Is Jared Bednar ever here? There's lots of nonsense there. We have already gone 10 minutes over, though, so we are going to wrap up. Consider becoming a diehard. Get access to all of our content. AJ, I Can't Point, has a bunch of amazing pieces that you should go read. I've got videos coming up later in the summer. Put your comments down below. Wait, don't do it in the live chat. Do it in the comments of the video of the what ifs we missed, and we'll talk about them tomorrow. That's it. We appreciate y'all. This has been the DNVR Avalanche Podcast, and we'll be back in, honestly, it's like 12 hours, I think, from when this thing is. Now it's like 15 hours. All right, we'll be back. Bye.
We all silly like the mayor.